What if the biggest secret in Hollywood history isn't who slept with who, but what they did to their stars to get a single shot? For decades, directors forced actors into sleep deprivation, near drowning, and chemical coercion. The glamorous tears and raw terror you see on screen weren't acting. They were the result of 19 shocking, unscripted experiments the studios paid fortunes to bury. The sleep deprivation method. 72 hours of madness. What if I told you the price of raw emotion was 3 days without rest? This is the story of an actor's quiet desperation, a star whose very exhaustion was exploited for art. In the opulent yet unforgiving era of the 1930s, the nascent method was less a system of internal realism and more an external demand for authentic trauma. Studio heads and ambitious directors sought to strip away the performance and capture the visceral reality of a nervous collapse. For a celebrated young leading man named Arthur Vance, tasked with portraying a detective driven mad by a case, the cost was precisely 72 hours of wakefulness. The demand originated from the director, who believed that only a mind frayed by fatigue could render the required level of authentic paranoia and despair. The system put in place was chillingly meticulous. Every 30 minutes, a new crew member was assigned to simply talk to Arthur or shine a light in his face should his eyelids flutter. His dressing room became a brightly lit holding cell. The entire experiment was overseen by the studio's in-house physician, a figure who, in that unregulated era, served the studio's schedule far more than the actor's health. This physician provided Arthur with a steady supply of activating capsules, though legal at the time, which kept the mind racing and the body tense. This chemical assistance only magnified the psychological distress, replacing natural fatigue with an amplified state of anxiety. As the second day blurred into the third, the effect became profound. Arthur began to experience vivid hallucinations, seeing phantom people and misinterpreting crew instructions. He would deliver his lines with the requisite manic energy, his eyes wide and vacant, a performance that garnered critical acclaim for its unflinching realism. The footage was mesmerizingly effective, capturing a true descent into madness. When the final shot wrapped, Arthur simply succumbed to exhaustion. The subsequent breakdown was total. The intense strain on his nervous system required nearly a month of recovery in a private sanatorium. The studio, of course, gloated with the resulting film, which became a commercial triumph. They quietly paid the doctor's bill and circulated stories to the press, praising Arthur's unparalleled dedication to his craft, rather than acknowledging the director's brutal exploitation. The documentation was swiftly filed away, buried in the studio archives, a secret testament to the price of raw emotion. The harrowing experience bought Arthur Vance a moment of cinematic immortality, but it cost him a piece of his sanity. And as we shall see, this ruthless pursuit of authenticity was merely the beginning of the studio's shocking experiments on their biggest stars. The Fear Factory, engineering real terror for a monster movie. That scream wasn't acting. It was the sound of a terrified actress locked in a pitch-dark soundstage. In the high-stakes world of early horror cinema, the directors realized that the most genuine terror comes not from makeup, but from genuine psychological distress. The year was 1946, and the studio was producing a gothic monster movie. The young actress at the center of this production, Miss Elara Vance, was a rising star. The director, a renowned perfectionist, declared that her performance lacked the necessary animal panic. He decided to manufacture it. The set was a massive soundstage, meticulously transformed into a crumbling, pitch-dark dungeon. The experiment was simple: sensory deprivation and isolation. Miss Vance was escorted onto the set and told that for the next 12 hours, she would be alone, except for the presence of the creature. She was left without light, outside sound, or any means of communication with the crew. The true cruelty was the controlled release of stimuli. A single crew member, positioned behind a thick curtain, was instructed to create periodic, unsettling noises. The sound of rattling chains, low, guttural breathing, and the deliberate scrape of metal on concrete. Crucially, the crew was forbidden from responding to any of Miss Vance's pleas, maintaining the illusion of absolute, terrifying isolation. The director's mandate was to let her mind fill in the terrifying blanks. For hours, the talented actress was reduced to a state of primal helplessness. The isolation caused her mind to turn against her, transforming every shadow and every whisper into the presence of the monster she was meant to fear. When the time came to film the scene, the director merely flicked on the lights and began rolling the camera. Miss Vance's terror was not performed. It was a genuine, visceral reaction to the sudden blinding light and the lingering psychological torture she had just endured. Her scream, preserved forever on celluloid, was lauded by critics as the most authentic moment of fright ever filmed. But the cost was significant. Miss Vance developed a debilitating case of lasting anxiety and an acute phobia of confined, dark spaces. The studio, recognizing the liability, paid her a small bonus and swiftly discouraged any press inquiries into the unusual filming process. This method of emotional extraction created one of the most memorable moments in cinematic history. However, it serves as a stark reminder that in Hollywood's golden age, the pursuit of a perfect performance sometimes meant inflicting genuine psychological distress on the artists who made the magic happen. The silent film, Submersion Test, a near-fatal pursuit of realism. The contract simply mentioned water stunts, but it didn't prepare the young actor, Mr. Julian Hayes, for being held underwater until he lost consciousness. A terrifying act explicitly ordered by a major studio head. This incident, number 3 on our list, is a chilling example of the shocking disregard for human safety prevalent in the silent film era of the 1910s and 20s. In those days, safety regulations were non-existent, and the camera's hungry eye often superseded any ethical concern for the actor's well-being. Mr. Hayes was cast in a grand adventure serial that climaxed with a gripping scene of peril in the ocean. Lacking professional stunt personnel, the dictatorial director insisted on the lead actor performing the most dangerous moments himself. The director, backed by the studio head's direct order, devised a horrifying regimen. His goal was to capture the genuine look of panic and the physiological reality of suffocation, moments too subtle to be feigned. The experiment required Mr. Hayes to be submerged in a large, unheated water tank. After initial takes where Hayes admirably held his breath, the director was dissatisfied. "His eyes betray knowledge," the director is recorded as saying. "We need the shock of the unknown. We need the actual failure." On the director's specific instructions, 2 burly crew members were assigned to hold the actor down. The director was adamant. No cut would be called until the absolute physiological reality of suffocation began to appear on the actor's face. The actor's recollection of the panic was visceral. The sudden, agonizing transition from voluntary breath-holding to the involuntary gasp, the burning sensation in the chest, and the final, quiet darkness as the brain began to shut down. He was pulled out, sputtering and distraught, only to be ordered to repeat the action. Mr. Hayes estimates the procedure was performed at least 4 times until the director was satisfied that he had enough footage of the genuine moments of physical cessation. It was a shocking spectacle of physical maltreatment, explicitly carried out under the studio's command. The on-set physician, primarily present for minor ailments, was called over only when Mr. Hayes remained profoundly disoriented after the final take. The physician's hasty examination found the actor's oxygen saturation critically low, and he was quickly stabilized. It was a near-catastrophic incident. The response from the studio was not one of remorse, but of clinical efficiency. They simply filed away the director's footage. Mr. Hayes received no apology or compensation beyond his contracted day rate. The studio immediately buried all documentation, classifying the terrifying, life-threatening procedure merely as a successful stunt. The memory of the water's coldness and the crew member's powerful grip stayed with Mr. Hayes for the rest of his career. This incident stands as a chilling monument to the era's unchecked power, where the line between artistic direction and physical mistreatment was entirely erased. The hunger strike of method acting, a dangerous transformation. Today, this is applauded. In 1950, this was an unpaid, unsupervised health risk, mandated by a director who gave the actor only black coffee and cigarettes for 2 months. It was a perilous journey into self-deprivation, all for the sake of portraying a man utterly wasted by grief. The 1950s ushered in the golden age of American method acting. Yet the philosophy was often corrupted by directors who demanded extreme physical transformations without providing any medical infrastructure. Our focus here is on Mr. Silas Thorne, a handsome, robust leading man chosen to play a destitute poet in a prestigious studio production. The director's vision required Silas to embody not just the spirit of poverty, but the physical atrophy of a man slowly wasting away. The transformation demanded by the director was severe. Silas was instructed to lose over 60 pounds, a quarter of his body weight, in less than 2 months. The regimen mandated was shockingly simplistic and devoid of nutritional value. For weeks, Silas existed almost entirely on a diet of black coffee and cigarettes, a regime that quelled his appetite but rapidly deteriorated his health. The studio provided no nutritionist, no personal trainer, and no medical supervision. The responsibility for this dangerous transformation fell entirely upon the actor's own willpower and body. The psychological toll was as great as the physical one. The constant hunger caused acute irritability and paranoia. Silas, normally a gregarious, amiable presence on set, became withdrawn and volatile, snapping at crew members and isolating himself between takes. This emotional rawness, however, was precisely what the director desired. The camera captured his gaunt features, the sunken eyes, and the genuine trembling of a body in constant distress. Critics would later praise his performance as a searing portrait of a broken man, unaware they were watching a man genuinely starving himself. The situation reached a critical point toward the end of the 2 months. Silas suffered a debilitating collapse on set, leading to an immediate rush to the hospital. The resulting medical reports indicated a scare concerning organ failure, a severe consequence of prolonged malnutrition and the chemical intake from the heavy consumption of tobacco and caffeine. It was a frightening consequence of the director's unilateral demand. The studio's response was a swift and carefully orchestrated campaign of public relations. They paid the hospital bills and immediately began propagating a narrative to the press. They did not frame it as a demand from the director, but rather as a testament to Silas's extraordinary dedication and uncompromising commitment to his artistic truth. The extreme weight loss, achieved under dangerous circumstances, was spun as a heroic choice made by the actor, forever masking the director's original, mandatory demand. The actor, suffering from weakness and emotional exhaustion, could do little to dispute the narrative. The result, a powerful, wrenching performance, came at an unimaginable physical and psychological cost. This instance showcases the dark reality behind many such applauded method transformations, where art became a dangerous justification for an unpaid, unsupervised health risk. And as one experiment concluded, another, featuring sensory extremes, was already being prepared on a different soundstage. Sensory overload, the 19-hour bombardment. The making of a 1960s war epic sought unprecedented realism, particularly in portraying the look of shell shock and combat fatigue. Intent on avoiding theatricality, the director devised a grueling 19-hour sensory experiment for actor Mr. Julian Case. The goal was to shatter the nerves and achieve the genuine, frazzled intensity of a man compromised by continuous conflict, believing Mr. Case's initial takes lacked the necessary trauma. The experiment in sensory assault. The environment was a massive, carefully controlled battlefield set. For 19 consecutive hours, Mr. Case remained in character under a relentless regime of sensory warfare. The effects team used carefully measured charges of real, low-yield dynamite in nearby trenches. While safe from physical harm, these explosions delivered a visceral, chest-thumping shockwave to simulate heavy fire. Compounding the acoustic assault was a continuous barrage of other stimuli. Powerful strobe lights simulated machine gun muzzle flashes.
forcing his eyes to constantly adjust to blinding, chaotic light. Simultaneously, the sound department looped recordings of continuous rifle fire, screaming, and the unsettling metallic whine of near-miss projectiles. The director's explicit goal was to induce a state of acute psychological distress, similar to genuine combat trauma, dismissing the meager protective gear provided as insufficient. Consequences and cover-up. The effect was instantaneous and profound. By the 10th hour, the auditory assault caused temporary deafness, leading Mr. Case to miss cues and shout his lines. The unrelenting strobe lights resulted in severe disorientation and nausea. He was denied adequate breaks throughout the 19-hour shoot. When the footage concluded, it was hailed as groundbreaking for its sheer, uncompromising realism. However, Mr. Case immediately exhibited clear symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, including extreme jumpiness and an inability to tolerate sudden loud noises. His nervous system took months to recover from the continuous shock. The studio, prioritizing the film's authenticity, swiftly ignored Mr. Case's medical complaints. His temporary deafness was dismissed as a minor side effect of practical effects, rather than the result of
purposeful sensory exploitation. Records detailing the volume levels and exposure duration were carefully excised from official production logs. The final performance delivered a truthful portrayal of battlefield fatigue in cinematic history. Yet, it serves as a stark reminder that sometimes the most terrifying enemy an actor faced was the one holding the megaphone, trading an actor's psychological well-being for realism. The broken heart contract. Forced separation for a romantic tragedy. Behind this classic love story was a brutal deal. The director forbade the lead actors, who were a real couple, from seeing or speaking to each other for the entire 6-month shoot. This was not a story of movie romance, but a chilling exercise in cultivating genuine longing and distress through calculated emotional deprivation. The year was 1958. The film was intended to be a timeless, wrenching romantic tragedy, a story of two lovers separated by cruel fate and impossible distance. The studio secured two of its biggest contract players, Miss Clara Day and Mr. George Bell, who were, at the time, a celebrated and genuinely devoted couple. Their authentic chemistry was the primary selling point for the picture. However, the director, convinced that their comfort with one another would breed complacency on screen, determined that the distance they were portraying had to be real. The director's logic was simple. The genuine pain of separation would translate directly to the screen. The two actors were presented with an addendum to their contracts, the broken heart clause, which strictly forbade them from any personal contact for the duration of the 6-month principal photography schedule. This included phone calls, letters, private visits, or any unscheduled encounters. They were to be housed in separate locations, monitored by studio assistants, and only allowed to interact when the cameras were rolling. The director's specific goal was to cultivate genuine longing and palpable distress that no amount of acting could truly replicate. When Clara and George were finally brought together for their intensely emotional scenes, the raw, aching look in their eyes was not performance. It was the accumulating weight of weeks of forced separation. The director observed that their reunions on screen, though scripted, were charged with an unscripted desperation, a desperate clinging that came from a real, violated need for intimacy. The emotional toll on their real-life relationship was immense. The 6 months were marked by intense strain, suspicion, and loneliness. Both actors reported feeling profoundly isolated, their off-screen lives dominated by the rules of the contract. George, in particular, struggled with the director's cold insistence that maintaining this distance was necessary for character integrity, forcing him to prioritize the artifice of the performance over the health of his personal bond. This justification, peddled by the studio, shifted the emotional burden entirely onto the actors. The final film was applauded for its unbearable tension and realistic anguish. Critics praised the lead actors for their unrivaled chemistry and the raw, exposed nerve of their longing. The studio happily peddled the film with stories of the stars' incredible emotional commitment, never revealing the coercive contract that had manufactured their genuine sorrow. The fact that the couple's relationship never fully recovered from this sustained, calculated emotional cruelty was a secret the studio deemed irrelevant to the final box office tally. This chapter in cinematic history reminds us that some directors viewed the actor's heart as just another instrument to be ruthlessly tuned for the perfect performance. The beauty on the screen was paid for with real, unscripted heartache. But the emotional constraints were not always external. Sometimes the constraint was the costume itself. The permanent costume, life as a character. For 2 weeks, a rising young actor named Mr. Thomas Lane was forced into a bizarre, full-immersion experiment. The goal was to erode his sense of self and capture the unscripted reality of physical endurance by making him live continuously in his character's heavy, restrictive wardrobe. In the 1940s, the pursuit of unflinching realism sometimes extended to extreme measures concerning the actor's costumes. The film was a grand historical drama, requiring Mr. Lane to portray a nobleman serving a lengthy prison term. The character's elaborate, yet deliberately heavy and restrictive costume was a physical manifestation of his confinement. The director mandated a period of continuous immersion. The rule was simple but profoundly disruptive. For 14 consecutive days, Mr. Lane was forbidden from removing the costume. He had to wear the heavy, multi-layered wool fabrics and stiff leather boots while eating, relaxing, and even while attempting to sleep. The director's theory was that the constant, oppressive physical presence would bleed into the actor's mental state, creating an authentic air of exhaustion and a subtle sense of being trapped. Physical distress was immediate and chronic. The heavy wool caused severe rashes and skin irritation. The stiff leather boots made restful sleep virtually impossible. In close-up shots, Mr. Lane's face unmistakably bore the subtle lines of a man who had not known a truly comfortable moment in 2 weeks. Crucially, the footage used in the final film often comprised the candid shots taken during these periods of mandated distress. The moments where Mr. Lane struggled to stand or looked profoundly weary were captured by a discreet second-unit camera and inserted into the final cut, presented as masterful demonstrations of his character's prolonged suffering. The studio, in an effort to control the narrative, presented this hardship as a high-minded commitment to artistic truth, ensuring that no mention of the mandatory nature of the 2-week ordeal ever reached the press. The unscripted betrayal. Director turns crew against the lead. That look of devastation wasn't from the script. The director had conspired with the entire crew to ignore, criticize, and verbally shun the lead actor for 3 consecutive days. It was a calculated, shocking act of emotional cruelty designed to manufacture the look of true isolation and betrayal on camera. The setting was a 1930s melodrama. The lead actor, Mr. Elliot James, was known for his sunny disposition, qualities the director deemed detrimental to the character's final, heartbreaking scene. The director required an authentic, deep-seated sense of hurt and abandonment. The experiment was a psychological conspiracy. The director gathered the entire crew and issued a strict mandate. For 72 hours, they were to treat Mr. James with absolute disdain. They were instructed to ignore his questions, respond only in curt, critical monosyllables, and openly criticize his performance loudly enough for him to overhear. Mr. James, accustomed to the warm environment of a Hollywood set, was completely blindsided. He went from being the respected leading man to a pariah in an instant. Technical errors were loudly and unfairly blamed on his supposed lack of focus. His professional confidence began to rapidly erode under the relentless, manufactured social rejection. The cumulative effect reached its crescendo during the filming of the crucial betrayal scene. Mr. James, already profoundly confused, hurt, and isolated, delivered a performance of searing, unscripted devastation. The emotional breakdown on camera was total. His eyes filled with real tears, and his voice genuinely trembled. When the scene was finally completed, the director abruptly called off the social experiment, offering a vague public apology. The crew, sworn to secrecy, ensured the director's true scheme was never revealed. The studio, of course, was thrilled with the scene's raw power and quickly buried any internal memos detailing the director's calculated cruelty. The forced phobia cure. Overcoming a real fear on camera. A studio found out their leading man had a severe phobia of heights. Their solution for his mountain climbing role? Non-stop exposure, unharnessed, until he cured himself. It was a shocking gamble that turned a genuine psychological affliction into a tool for dramatic effect. In the mid-1950s, studios were eager to produce lavish adventure films. Mr. Victor Sterling, a charismatic star, was cast as an intrepid mountain climber. The studio's medical division discovered that Victor suffered from a severe, lifelong case of acrophobia. Instead of hiring a stunt professional, the director and a controlling studio executive saw this vulnerability as an opportunity. They concluded that if Victor were forced to confront his genuine fear, the resulting terror would deliver a performance of unparalleled realism. Their twisted solution was to mandate a non-stop, unharnessed exposure to heights on set, effectively turning the production into a compulsory, cruel form of aversion therapy. The principal location was a breathtaking yet perilous mountain range. Victor was required to perform scenes near cliffs. Crucially, the director insisted that all safety harnesses and wires be removed or hidden from the camera, ensuring that the actor's discomfort was visible and real. The emotional blackmail used to keep him from quitting was intense. The studio executive constantly reminded him of the immense financial cost of reshooting, or the potential damage to his reputation if he admitted to being too timid. Victor, battling overwhelming nausea and dizziness, nearly lost his footing on several occasions. These moments of genuine, life-threatening instability were used in the final cut. The lasting psychological damage was severe. Victor's acrophobia became worse and debilitating. The trauma of being forced into such a vulnerable, fearful state compounded his existing condition. The isolation booth, 48 hours with no stimuli. To achieve the look of true spiritual emptiness for an avant-garde drama in the late 1960s, an actor named Robert Dalton was subjected to an extreme experiment in sensory deprivation. The director decided that Dalton could not merely act isolated, he had to genuinely experience isolation. A custom-built, windowless, soundproof isolation booth was constructed. The mandate was 48 consecutive hours of total sensory deprivation. There was no light, no external sound, no clock, and minimal necessities. The environment was designed to halt all external input, forcing Dalton's mind inward until his grip on reality began to erode. The documented effects of complete sensory deprivation are profoundly disorienting. For Mr. Dalton, the lack of stimuli immediately caused severe time distortion. The oppressive silence gave way to an internal auditory landscape. As the experiment neared its end, he began to experience vivid hallucinations. The original safety protocol required a studio physician to monitor Mr. Dalton. Shockingly, this essential safety measure failed. The physician departed early on the second day, leaving Mr. Dalton completely unsupervised. When the 2 days concluded, Mr. Dalton was intensely disoriented. The director immediately utilized the first few hours of filming, capturing the actor's faltering gait and his vacant, struggling attempts to focus. Footage the director later proclaimed to be the perfect return from the void. Mr. Dalton struggled to return to normal life for weeks afterward, suffering from acute anxiety. The studio successfully disguised the incident as merely the actor's intense immersion in his role, and paid a sum to the monitoring physician to ensure his silence regarding the negligence involved. The constant noise experiment, breaking an actor's concentration. In the 1970s, the film was a taut thriller, requiring lead actor, Mr. Charles Monroe, to portray a man slowly unraveling under extreme pressure. The director was dissatisfied with Charles's initial calm demeanor and needed him to be genuinely frazzled. The director's chosen method was a subtle, insidious form of psychological harassment, acoustic torture. He instructed the sound department to generate a constant, high-frequency tone, just outside the range of comfortable human hearing, and play it continuously over the soundstage speakers for the entire 14-hour shooting period. This relentless whine was designed to bypass the conscious mind and directly attack the actor's nervous system. The physical and emotional symptoms began subtly but escalated quickly. Charles and several key crew members started complaining of severe, pulsating headaches and nausea. The continuous low-level assault also induced acute irritability, making Charles short-tempered. The director was delighted, capturing Charles's genuine jitteriness, the visible tension, and the raw, stressed energy in his eyes. The breaking point arrived late on the second day. Overcome by the persistent sonic assault, Charles threatened to leave the production immediately and take swift legal action, citing a hazardous working environment. The studio, recognizing the clear liability, reacted with uncharacteristic speed and fear of a damaging lawsuit. The high-frequency tone was immediately shut off. The studio quickly settled the issue with Charles, offering a substantial private payment and signing a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement, NDA. Emotional aid for tears, the chemical shortcut to emotion. Before reliable method acting, studios experimented with giving actors unverified, stress-relieving, or emotion-enhancing injections right before takes. This was a dark intersection of cinematic ambition and uncontrolled chemistry, where directors sought to extract genuine tears through a chemical shortcut. The 1940s brought a demand for intense, immediate emotional realism. For one particular melodrama requiring its leading actress, Miss Diana Vance, to collapse into a sustained, genuine weeping fit, the director decided to seek a chemical solution. The studio quietly approved the measure. The substances used were vague, unverified compounds, often referred to with euphemisms like tension relievers or emotional aids. These injections, administered by a studio employee who often lacked proper medical credentials, were a cocktail of substances designed to induce a sudden, powerful state of emotional vulnerability or profound disorientation. The results were immediate and alarming. Instead of the elegant weeping the director desired, Diana was overcome by profound dizziness and slurred speech. She entered a state of confused, uncontrolled crying, a reaction that was more akin to distress. The camera did, however, capture the genuine overflow of tears. The studio physician was pressured to sign off on the procedures, classifying them as vitamin injections. The truth was only revealed years later, when a former studio medical professional, Dr. Elias Thorne, shared his knowledge with authorities. The studio's immediate response to the whistleblower was ferocious, seeking to discredit Dr. Thorne entirely. They managed to successfully bury the specific documentation detailing the nature of the illegal substances and the director's directives. The forced rivalry, setting leads against each other. The intense friction between co-stars was sometimes not organic. It was manufactured with calculated precision. The studio's deliberate decision to grant one actor superior perks while publicly criticizing the other was a strategy designed to harvest genuine resentment and raw anger for a more gripping drama. In the 1940s, the studio paired Miss Audrey Lane and Mr. Julian Kent for a major drama about bitter professional rivals. The director and a powerful studio executive determined that their on-screen antagonism needed to be visceral and real. They engineered a meticulous system of privilege and slight. The manipulation began with a deliberate imbalance in their working conditions. Mr. Kent received a significantly better trailer and a higher weekly pay rate. Miss Lane's requests were coldly denied. More crucially, the director began a campaign of public criticism directed solely at Miss Lane, openly questioning her dedication and praising Mr. Kent's superior reading. Simultaneously, the script was quietly adjusted to give Mr. Kent the more powerful lines. The manufactured drama took hold swiftly. Miss Lane felt profoundly humiliated and undermined. The working environment quickly became toxic. The ultimate goal was to capture unscripted, genuine flashes of resentment and anger on film. During their confrontations, the cameras rolled continuously, capturing the momentary flicker of real hatred in Miss Lane's eyes. The studio happily harvested the resulting drama, which conveniently leaked to gossip columnists, significantly boosting the film's publicity. The final film remains a testament to the power of the rivalry, built on a foundation of manufactured contempt. The extreme weather shoot, no protection in sub-zero temps. The director demanded real breath condensation and genuine shivering, forcing the actors to film for several days in dangerously below freezing weather with only lightweight, period-appropriate costumes. This arrogant demand exposed the stars to the raw violence of nature. The setting was a vast, unforgiving mountain location chosen for a 1950s historical drama. The director, intent on achieving absolute realism, rejected all artificial effects. He demanded that the lead actors, Miss Elena Royce and Mr. David Vance, exhibit the authentic, physiological truth of intense cold. The temperature on location was consistently below freezing,
sometimes plunging to 15 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit.
Despite these dangerous conditions, the director insisted that the actors wear only thin, woolen tunics and simple leather boots. The lightweight, period-appropriate costumes, with no heavy protective gear permitted while the cameras were rolling. The logistical support was criminally minimal. The production failed to provide adequate heated tents or nearby warming stations. Breaks were infrequent. The consequences were immediate and severe. Miss Royce suffered frightening incidents of hypothermia scares. Mr. Vance developed a painful, early stage of frostbite. The director, viewing their chattering teeth and blue lips, simply nodded with satisfaction. The studio's defense of this brutal regimen was pure hubris, claiming the extreme conditions were necessary for the film's artistic vision. The film garnered immense praise for its stark realism, yet the price paid was substantial, involving long-term nerve damage for Mr. Vance and a lingering susceptibility to cold for Miss Royce. The studio quickly settled all medical claims privately and issued a stern gag order. The 48-hour loop, forced repetition to capture collapse. The late 1940s saw a rise in psychological dramas. For one such film, the director believed his leading man, Mr. Philip Grant, was over-intellectualizing his role. The crucial scene was a simple, two-line exchange where the character finally admits his defeat. The director felt Mr. Grant's performance was too polished. The director's solution was a psychological siege. He announced that the crew would not leave the set until Mr. Grant delivered the scene with unconscious truth. The crew was then forced to shoot the same simple exchange for 48 consecutive hours. The true cruelty lay in the director's demands for impossible, minute variations on each take. The director would demand an abstract correction. "Say it with 3% more despair, Philip." Or, "I want the nuance of a man who hasn't slept in 7 periods." This constant, subtle criticism, combined with the extreme sleep deprivation from over 200 takes, was a calculated assault on the actor's professional confidence. The exhaustion quickly became palpable. Mr. Grant's memory began to fail, and his focus dissipated. Near the end of the second period, Mr. Grant, unable to remember his simple lines, stood frozen in front of the camera. The director's sharp, demanding voice finally pierced through his fatigue. The actor simply gave up and burst into uncontrolled tears. Seizing the moment, the director quietly instructed the camera operator to keep rolling. He had finally captured the unscripted, genuine surrender he had sought. The studio cut the emotional collapse into the final film, presenting it as a moment of profound, unscripted truth. The studio's lawyers quickly settled with Mr. Grant, ensuring the details of the grueling 48-hour loop were never disclosed. The stunt double switch, forcing the lead into danger. The contract said a stunt double would be used. During the period of the shoot, the director had the stunt double quietly sent home and told the actor the camera angle required their body. This was a brazen act of betrayal, leveraging an actor's professional commitment to force them into a highly dangerous physical risk. In the 1930s, our focus is on Mr. Arthur Rhodes, contracted to star in a historical epic that included a perilous leap from a second-story balcony onto a moving carriage. Mr. Rhodes' contract explicitly stipulated that a professional stunt double would perform this sequence. The director, however, was obsessed with a specific close-up that he believed could only be achieved if the star's face was visible throughout the action. He executed his premeditated plan. He instructed his assistant to quietly inform the professional stunt double that filming had been postponed. When Mr. Rhodes arrived, the director offered a false, flattering explanation, claiming the intimate camera angle required only the unique way Mr. Rhodes carried his body. Mr. Rhodes, confronted by the entire crew and the director's insistent flattery, felt immense pressure to agree, despite his panic. The immediate result was predictable and tragic. Mr. Rhodes, lacking the double's specialized training, performed the jump with insufficient precision. He landed awkwardly, resulting in an immediate and serious compound fracture to his leg and a sustained physical injury to his back. The studio went into immediate damage control. The accident was recorded as an unforeseen on-set event, and the studio worked quickly to frame the incident as an actor's misstep. Mr. Rhodes was subsequently forced to sign an extensive non-disclosure agreement that ensured the director's role was never publicly acknowledged. What you've just learned, the emotional aid and the stunt double switch, reveals the terrifying disregard some directors had for their stars. Tell us which of these studio experiments you found the most shocking. Comment below with your reaction to this raw truth, or share any other industry rumors you've heard. Your input fuels our mission to expose the buried history of Hollywood. The accidental damage, a director's thirst for real pain. For a genuine look of pain, a director convinced a crew member to accidentally strike an actor during a combat scene, promising a bonus if the actor didn't notice the change. This was an astonishing act of calculated physical aggression, transforming a choreographed performance into a genuine moment of unscripted suffering. The 1940s saw a rise in gritty historical epics. For one such film, the director, fixated on achieving absolute authenticity, was dissatisfied with the theatricality of the choreographed fight sequences. He demanded a look of genuine, spontaneous anguish. The director's shocking solution was to bypass the safety of the choreography entirely. He quietly approached the crew member responsible for the prop and proposed a secret, unethical deal. The technician was instructed to discreetly swap the lightweight, foam-padded prop for a solid, unpadded alternative, and to deliver a genuine, forceful strike to the lead actor's arm during the take. The technician, under pressure, agreed. When the moment arrived, the crew member delivered a sharp, unexpected blow with the solid weapon. The result was not merely a surprised look, but a genuine cry of pain and an immediate, debilitating fracture to Mr. Allister's forearm. The director, however, was focused entirely on the footage, delighted that he had captured the genuine, unmistakable look of raw, blinding pain. The aftermath was a flurry of corporate panic. Mr. Allister was rushed off the set, and the severity of his injury forced a lengthy halt to the production. The studio's legal team quickly offered Mr. Allister a substantial, seven-figure studio settlement, designed to ensure his absolute silence. The actor was compelled to sign an extensive non-disclosure agreement. The studio successfully deflected any public scrutiny by citing an unfortunate, accidental technical malfunction. The junior crew member, though initially promised the bonus, was paid off with a small severance and immediately dismissed. The weight loss supplement disaster, speeding up a starlet's weight loss. Under intense pressure to be camera-ready, one studio put their young actress on an unregulated, highly addictive weight loss supplement regimen, monitored by an unqualified assistant. This was a lethal combination of glamour and negligence, transforming a young woman's ambition into a genuine medical emergency. The 1940s defined Hollywood glamour with a ruthless standard of slender perfection. For rising starlet Miss Lillian Gray, the pressure to lose an additional 10 pounds in an impossibly short time frame was intense. Her contract mandated this extreme weight loss, yet the method chosen was not nutrition and exercise, but an alarming chemical shortcut. Lillian was placed on an unregulated, highly addictive regimen of so-called pep pills, capsules containing powerful, unverified stimulants. These pills were not prescribed by a doctor. The regimen was overseen by a zealous, unqualified assistant. The regimen accelerated her weight loss, but rapidly compromised her health. The constant stimulation led to severe insomnia, paranoia, and acute anxiety. Her body quickly developed a profound dependence on the powerful stimulants. The situation spiraled into a genuine medical scare. Lillian was found in her apartment, having taken an excessive quantity of the pills, requiring an emergency rush to the hospital to stabilize her volatile system. The studio's action was swift, powerful, and calculated, a comprehensive cover-up. The cause of her near collapse was officially recorded as
extreme exhaustion, avoiding any mention of the illegal, unregulated pills. The assistant responsible was quietly reassigned, and a substantial private payment was made to the hospital to secure their complete silence. Lillian Gray was forced to sign a lifetime non-disclosure agreement before returning to the set. The final film showcased her slender figure and intense gaze, never revealing that the brilliance on screen was fueled by a dangerous, coercive addiction. The legacy of silence. Why these stories never got out. How did 19 stories of near torture vanish? The answer is simple. Lifetime non-disclosure agreements, controlled media, and the sheer, unassailable power of the Hollywood machine. This is the final, chilling revelation. The institutional mechanisms that ensured these terrible secrets stayed buried. The golden age of Hollywood operated less like film companies and more like feudal empires. When incidents of abuse occurred, the machinery of silence went into immediate effect, treating the truth as a public relations emergency. The primary legal framework used to silence the victims was the Non-Disclosure Agreement, NDA. These were aggressive, often lifelong contracts forced upon actors and crew members who had been harmed, almost always signed immediately after the incident. The victim was presented with a handsome settlement on the absolute condition that they would never, under any circumstances, speak of the events. The role of powerful agents and managers was equally complicated. They would often encourage the signing of the NDA, advising the actor that cooperation and silence was the only path back to solvency and success. Those who refused to comply were blacklisted. Furthermore, the studio's control over the media was almost absolute. The studios would feed them a carefully managed flow of positive, sanitized news, ensuring that any rumor of on-set trouble was immediately countered with a pre-approved narrative. The final layer of concealment involved the physical disposal of evidence. All internal memos, original director's notes, and unedited medical reports were systematically excised from official production logs and locked away in controlled legal vaults. The official record of production was scrubbed clean. The legacy of this silence is profound. The performances we celebrate today are often the direct, uncompensated results of these cruel and coercive experiments. Today's new experiments, the subtle digital abuses. The physical torture is mostly gone, but today's experiments are digital, forced deepfakes, unauthorized digital avatars, and non-stop contractual control over an actor's image. The pursuit of absolute control over the performer continues, simply shifting from the body to the digital likeness. Today, stricter safety regulations have largely relegated the outright physical dangers of the golden age to the past. The industry has evolved, but the underlying ambition, the desire to own and exploit the actors'
Image and performance fully remains. This new era of exploitation operates not on the soundstage, but in the digital domain. Where a director once starved a leading man, today a studio can simply scan a digital likeness of the actor's body and use computer graphics to sustain that illusion indefinitely. This has led to terrifying contractual demands, where actors are pressured to sign away the rights to their digital avatars, a computerized double that can perform, age, and even speak lines the actor never recorded. The most insidious modern experiments involve the use of unauthorized deepfakes and digital face swapping. An actor might be contracted for a small role, only to find their digital likeness utilized across various studio projects without additional compensation. This is a form of digital thievery. The legal fights are numerous and complex, centered on the intellectual property of the human face. The modern ways studios still exploit actors under the guise of artistic liberty are simply cleaner, quieter, and conducted by lawyers rather than brute force. The glamorous image of Hollywood endures, but these 19 stories reveal a darker truth. that the pursuit of cinematic perfection often meant the systemic abuse and calculated cruelty of the very artists who brought the magic to the screen. The secrets have been revealed, and the legacy of silence is finally being broken. We have reached the end of our exploration, detailing 19 buried stories of exploitation and the system that kept them hidden. The truth, as we have seen, is far darker than any film. If you have been captivated by the secrets we've uncovered, please share this video with someone who loves classic Hollywood or true crime. Help us ensure these stories of immense sacrifice and courage are no longer buried by the Hollywood machine. That was a harrowing journey through the darkest secrets of Hollywood's golden age. The raw emotion and cinematic magic we celebrate were, in too many cases, bought with the genuine pain, fear, and exhaustion of the actors. If these 19 buried stories of ruthless exploitation and calculated cruelty, from the emotional aid for tears to the unscripted betrayal, have shocked you, you need to be with us for the next investigation. Do not let the Hollywood machine bury these truths again. Like this video to honor the actors who endured these shocking experiments. Subscribe now to ensure you don't miss our future deep explorations into the hidden history of show business and the subtle, modern forms of exploitation that continue today. We're breaking the legacy of silence, one story at a time.